Hi, everybody. My name is Pam Wanvier, and I live in Silver Spring, Maryland. I am a Tellington touch practitioner, and I also do cranial sacral work. This talk is about Tellington touch and how to do it. It's kind of it's a big subject, but I'm going to try to explain what it is and a little bit of how to do it so that maybe you can walk away from this having some tools to use with your dog or other dogs that you encounter. Let's see, I've been doing this for over 25 years. It's a very interesting approach to working with animals. I had gone to some trainings that I was taking dogs to training facilities and being kind of surprised by some of the training techniques. And then someone gave me Linda Tellington Jones's book, and I have a background in special ed. And when I started seeing what she was doing, I really related to it. So started taking the trainings, a 2-year training to become a practitioner. And for me, it's infinitely interesting because every animal you encounter is different. And TTouch gives you a lot of tools that you can work with. And if we can change the anxiety level of an animal or the stressors in their lives, like for older animals, pain, or animals who have an injury, pain is one of the biggest stressors, as well as the environment and their histories can all play a role. So I'm going to start my PowerPoint here, hopefully. And hold on one second. Let me get it into the slideshow. And there we go. What is TTouch? It's a gentle method using body work. And when I say body work, I'm not talking about massage. Massage goes through the skin to the muscle, and with Tellington touch, we're actually working with the skin, which is where the nerve endings are. Our neural pathways come out of our brain and go all over our body, and they end here at our skin, which is how we can feel. When we touch a nerve ending here, it sends messages up to the brain. And what we're interested in is working with the skin where the nerve endings are to send messages to the brain. And that's the body work portion, which I will go into more in depth in a bit. We use wraps. So most people these days have heard of thunder shirts, and thunder shirts were developed by a Tellington touch practitioner. Initially we used ACE bandages, stretchy bandages, so that we could help contain comfort. Nowadays, there's, oh my goodness, in special ed, they've got weighted vests, and there's weighted blankets, and there's all kinds of things with many people and with many dogs, it helps calm the nervous system, and that's why we use wraps. It can be, on some dogs, it doesn't work at all. On other dogs, it's like a miracle. So it is totally worth a try. And then we use confidence course exercises, which help reduce tension in the body. And it helps improve emotional and physical balance, because an animal who's physically unbalanced is often emotionally balanced as well. TTouch, so moving the skin in the pattern that I will show you, the circle and a quarter, the body work part, encourages the release of endorphins and oxytocin, which help your dog learn how to relax and to be more able to shift emotional states, because, well, I'll get into it more. A lot of the problems are dogs who have behavior problems tend to be kind of stuck in a kind of an anxious pattern, and we can help change that with TTouch. So TTouch helps promote physical, mental, and emotional balance, clear communication, self-control, and impulse control. And impulse control is huge with so many of these animals. They they don't really know how to contain themselves or control themselves. Emotional flexibility is what we're looking for, helping them learn how to shift emotional states. And it helps promote and foster trust. That's one of the biggest problems that I find with rescued animals is a lot of them don't trust. So this work really helps with that. Also, animals who they don't want to cuddle, or they don't like to be touched so much. This work really helps with that. It's a common thing I hear from dogs that I'm working with, that they've become more they seek out attention, which is something that maybe they haven't liked in the past. I don't think being touched is not comfortable for many dogs, but they can, that's something that this work really helps them stop guarding those places on their body that they really don't like to be touched. They're actually holding tension there, and we can help release that. Many things affect a dog's emotional state, whether it's fear, pain, or the environment. Many dogs I work with, maybe most of the dogs I work with, they're overly involved in the environment and everything around them. What's that over there? Oh my goodness. They're any sound, any movement, anything that's going on is kind of overwhelming for them. They can't really screen out input. And this work really does help with that. So when we're talking about the emotions, we're talking about the limbic system, the sympathetic and parasympathetic sides of it. So one side is easygoing and adaptable, and that would be the bomb-proof dog, the dog who, and that is down there. That's where bomb-proof dog, that's where eating and sleeping and learning and able to screen out, things going on around them, so they can just kind of hang out and be kind of grounded. That's the parasympathetic side of the nervous system. The opposite side of that is fight, flight, freeze, faint. We've added fool around, which I can explain if I get a chance. But that's where they're in survival mode. They're not thinking anymore. They are they're reacting to the environment. They're not able to screen stuff out. It's where it's just they're kind of out of their heads. They can't hear you if they're up there. They're just, so I explain this by saying, if I have a scale from 1 to 10, and 1 is your bomb-proof, easygoing, laid-back dog, and 10 is your dog who is unable to really understand or hear what you're saying. They're just reacting to their environment, to stimuli around them, and they're not home, is how I think of it. So between 1 and 10, when I see a dog who comes to see me and it walks in the room, where is it fall on my scale? This is my own scale. This is not a TTouch scale. It's just how I see it in my brain. How I explain it to their person. If a dog comes in and sniffs, it's a new environment, looks around, maybe sniffs around, walks around, but comes over and plops down on the floor, that's 1, that dog is closer to 1. A dog who comes in and will always find things to be involved with and just keep looking around and smelling around, maybe trying to jump on the counter, and they might settle down for a second, but they pop right up and they're all over the place. And they're just, I don't know, sometimes we call it wired, or we could call it anxious, or they're just not able to shift from that. That is where they're living, at that place. So what can we do with that? If anybody has dogs that are, have trouble with other dogs on walks or whatever, if they have a really hard time with it, they can't hear what you're saying. They can't take the treats. They can't. So there's let's see, this is not shifting. Why aren't you shifting to the next? Hello. I'm getting a lot of messages here. Oh, I see. Okay. Let's see if I can get rid of that. How about that? That didn't work either. Oh, that worked. So, sorry, guys. So when we have the same problems. I don't know if you've ever had so much on your plate, so much going on in your life, and things are so crazy. Of course, the last couple of years are a good example of that, but maybe you're having to make lists to get everything done and you're crazy and somebody puts your hands on your shoulders and you drop your shoulders and you go, oh, I've been really holding on to some tension. And you didn't maybe realize it. It kind of snuck up on you and you realize that maybe, oh, I'm really sore. I'm holding a lot of tension. And we can maybe, if we notice it, we can have some herbal tea, or we can have take a bath or get a massage or something. Well, dogs are similar. You know, a dog who's emotionally flexible, something startling happens and they're able to relax, go back to relaxing. You know, it doesn't take them, overcome them. Something startling happens to a dog who is already a bit anxious and they're just kind of wound up. They get stuck there. Okay, I can't do it that way. I can do it that way. Good. Okay, and here's a similar analogy to ourselves. I don't know if you've ever been in the shower and looked down on your leg and you have a bruise. And you go, gosh, when did I get that bruise? I know I've done that. If I walk in this room and hit this table edge here, when I'm actually kind of paying attention and, you know, I'll go, ow, ow, I'm going to have a bruise. But if I have a lot on my plate, I don't even remember doing it until I look down and have see the bruise and I'll go, oh, wow. Okay. I think animals are the same way when they're that distracted by something, and it can be pain or the environment or fear in general. They don't know what happened. They don't know what happened. So reducing anxiety and tension really helps. It helps change habitual behavior patterns. So if you're trying to train a behavior, if they're too distracted, it's very hard, if not impossible, to teach them. But if we can shift their emotional state, they can learn a different behavior. Enhance the ability to learn by lowering their stress levels or their anxiety levels, and make new behavior choices possible. By doing TTouch, they can learn to by doing TTouch, we can learn where they're holding this tension in their body, because we hold it in our body and they hold it in their body. If you're working with TTouch and you've been doing it for a little while, when something starts to happen or there's kind of a stimulus that's getting your dog aroused, you can reach down and you can do some TTouches, because you've actually, when you've been doing TTouch since, let's say, what I'm trying to say, if you do regular TTouch for 2 or 3 weeks, let's say, then when you're in a situation and you reach down to do some TTouches on your dog, the dog's body will go, oh, and realize, kind of like I talked about with somebody with tension in your shoulders, and somebody reminds you that you're holding the tension in your shoulders. With them, if you reach down and do some TTouches on them, their body can relax and they can start to think again. It can engage the brain. And they can refocus. And that way you can help them to shift emotional states and become more emotionally flexible. A dog's emotional state affects their behavior, for sure. So how can we read a dog's emotional state? They can't tell us, so we have to read it by observation. So some of the things you can look for are, do they have a high head carriage or tail carriage? Tails on dogs are complicated because there's so many breeds, but once you get to know your dog a little bit, you may notice, oh, the other thing, it's not only high tail and high tail carriage, but also if they're tucking their tail can also be a good indicator of what's actually going on. Tension in the limbs, shallow breathing. Are they holding their breath? And I'm going to probably try to say this more than once. Are you holding your breath? Because oftentimes when something happens, they hold their breath, but you go like that and hold your breath. And they are masters of body language, and they read our body language. And breath is something that they follow. Are their eyes staring with little blinking? If they're staring and not blinking, they're aroused. So if you're walking your dog who has a difficult time with other dogs, if you look and your dog, they don't want to take their eyes off what they're looking at, so they're just staring. A dog who's relaxed will blink and look away, and dogs who kind of know how to talk dog to other dogs, there's a whole bunch of other behaviors that they do to make sure that the other dog knows that they're not they're cool. I'm cool. So we need to learn to speak dog is what we need to do. So tension in the limbs, breathing, eyes staring with little blinking. Does their skin feel tight? You can figure that out by reaching down and feeling once you start doing TTouch, you'll start to notice how tight or loose their skin is. That's one of the things that is part of this work. And an anxious dog often has areas on its body that they don't like to have touched. And oftentimes it's interesting. Once I've pointed that out, oh, look at that. When I went to touch the hind end, he sat down or moved away. And they'll go, yeah, he doesn't like to be touched there. And they kind of realize it on some level, but there's a whole nother piece to that if you know what that is and where it is, there's ways you can get to that in a really kind of unthreatening and gentle way to get them to relax around guarding that area or be less concerned about it. When working with a dog, especially when you don't know, be aware. I don't know if everybody on this call works only with their own dogs, but if you're working, so you may already know when your dog is comfortable or when it's not comfortable. But when you're working with other people's dogs, be aware of your body language and breathing. Make sure you're breathing. Make sure your body's relaxed. I kind of don't go head on with the dog or face them directly. I just have my body turned a little bit. Don't stare at the dog. Remember to blink, and don't lean over the dog. Those are just some things that will help keep you safe if you're around other dogs, because people tend to go, oh, I love dogs, and they go right into the face head on with the dog. And it might be that you like dogs, but that dog might not like people. Oh, okay. Okay, this is working again. Okay, so starting the dialogue. While working intention with dogs, but intention in life and intention in the world is more powerful than I think as time goes on here. I think more people are getting aware of how powerful intention is. The Intention Experiment by Limbic Taggart, I think is the name of the book, is a really interesting book about the intention and its effect on outcomes of experiments that scientists, she interviews a bunch of scientists, and the intention that they had of whether it would work or not work had a rather huge effect on the experiment. And so just scientists were figuring that out. So anyway, but with our dogs, if your dog is tense and you're going, oh my gosh, they're tense, instead of going, why don't we be calm? If we can kind of frame our intention to work in the direction that we're looking to go, that can be really useful. So while we're working, our attention is to help the animal become more calm, balanced, and present. picture in your mind what you want your dog to be doing and to remember to breathe. If you have a dog who's having trouble with other dogs and or you're trying to teach them something and they're not cooperating and you're thinking about how they're not cooperating rather than picturing them doing what you ask them to do, that's not going to be as successful as I think. It's interesting. I used to go to training classes and watch people with their dogs, and you know, like the first day or two of a basic training class, and the dog is kind of everywhere, and they're trying to get it to sit or, you know, walk with them on a lead or lie down or something. Let's say walk on a lead, and they're not being very successful, and the dog's everywhere, and the person teaching the class takes the dog and then walks out to the class and back, and the dog does it beautifully. And I used to think, what is happening here? Why is it working so well for the one person and not the other? And I think it's because of a clear picture in their head. Temple Grandin, her Thinking in Pictures book is kind of interesting if you're interested in that. And she talks about talking in sentences or phrases versus one word, but that they can in fact read the pictures in your mind. So I don't know, that's something to think about, but I've always done it. I've done it with my animals all the time. And I think it helps them know what's going on. Where to start? So where do you start? Observe without judgment, establish a baseline. So you're observing and you go, okay, I see what I've got right here. Start when you're working with them, recognize the changes, listen to the animal, what is being said, pardon me, and reevaluate frequently. And what I'm saying is listen to the animal. When you start working with an animal, are they moving toward you? Are they moving away? They're talking to you with their body, and that's their language. So we have to start to learn to read what they're telling us. So introduction and exploration. Greeting so when you first are if you're working with your own dog, some of this doesn't relate. It might, but some of it doesn't. If you're working with other people's dog, is the dog comfortable with eye contact? If it is, then how receptive is the dog? Does the dog approach or leave? Does it solicit touching? And then what I'll do is if they do come over with the palm of my hand, I'll run slowly over the whole dog, do just an exploration, kind of pet the dog all the way from the head, all the way down to the hips. If they're comfortable with that, at that point, do they walk away? Do they come back? Do they let me go down maybe their chest and their leg? Just, see what they're telling you about how they feel about being touched. And so, some dogs will just come over, they'll lean on you, and other ones will go, okay, I'm not so sure about that, and they'll move away. So when you're doing this exploration, if they're comfortable being touched, you can look for, are there areas that are hot or cold? Where's the dog? Sometimes they'll present you with a place, like maybe they like their shoulders or their neck or their head, or sometimes they like their hind end touched. A lot of dogs don't like their hind end touched, though. There's a lot of tension back there for many dogs. So where do and don't they like to be touched? Is the hair coat uniform? And pardon me, where's the dog's skin loose and where is it tight? If you're starting to do some work on them, check it. Do they yawn? Yawning, I'll get to the mouth. The mouth is one of the closest links to the emotions, so it's a fascinating area. Yawning and licking their lips or shaking off, turning their head away, sniffing the ground. Are they releasing or starting to settle down, or are they, like tolerating what you're doing with them? Your dog's body language will tell you where or if they don't want to be touched by you. leaning toward or away from you, stepping, okay, sitting down or trying to lick your hand. If you start doing some T-touches on their hind end and they sit down, they're saying, I don't know if I like that so much. Or if they try to lick your hand when you're doing it, they're also going, well, I'm not so sure I like that. And I have to say, if you get to the place where they're looking at you with hard eyes and growling and snarling, you haven't been reading their body language, and it's time to reassess. The whole point is to not to get there, to read the small things they're telling you, so they don't have to yell at you, is what I'm trying to say. So when I'm working, I'm looking for relaxation of the body. Are they starting to blink rather than stare? Are they starting to take deeper breaths and yawning? Because yawning is moving the mouth, and the mouth is a very close link to, it's a release. I also make sure that I'm not holding my breath and I am taking slow, deep, calm breaths. I take deep breaths. I take it every now and again, I take a deep breath and let it out, or I just do a sigh or something. It really helps them to relax, because if we're all tense while we're doing the body work, it's not going to go in the direction that it's kind of being counterproductive. So recognize, one of the first things I'll do when I start working with a dog, I'll do a few T-touches and stop and see whether they walk away or come back or lean or walk across the room. And then when they come back, I'll do some more, and then I'll wait and see how they do it. These are just the introductory things. After I've worked with them for a while, oftentimes they'll just like, okay, let's just do this. This is great. So disengaging and giving the animal time and space to integrate what they're feeling after you've worked with them is a really good practice. There are 3 components to T-touch. There's body work, wraps, and confidence course. As I said before, the body work is not massage. So T-touch is a simple move. It's a circle and a quarter. The brain pays attention to what's not habitual. And that's, what the heck does that mean? But what that means is the brain pays attention to something that's different. And an example of that is if you fold your hands and you've been doing it all your life, and you go ahead right now, I can't see any of you, but if you fold your hands, if you've always been doing it, it's pretty comfortable. But if you open your hands and slide them up one and fold them the other way, I could ask you, but it probably feels a little strange or odd. And as I'm talking, people immediately let their hands go and whatever, because it doesn't feel great. So the way I've always done it, those neural pathways are very well developed. The way you don't usually do it, those neural pathways are there, but they're like a country path through the woods. And it seems that the animals who have a lot of anxiety or fear or whatever, they're not very well connected up, and T-touch seems to help with that. So the Tellington touch, the T-touch itself is a circle and a quarter, which is a non-habitual movement. So let me just go to the next one. It's a circle and a quarter. So let me go back. If I put my fingers here, I have my thumb under my hand, and I don't know if you can see this well. You might be able to change the view so you can see. If I put my fingers at 6 o'clock I'm going to pretend there's a clock here, and I'm putting my fingers at the bottom of the clock at 6, and then I'm going to push the skin up to 9 and over to 12 and down to 3, 6, and then past 6 to 9. So I'm literally doing a circle and a quarter. A circle and a quarter. It's very light. So if I do it on my face, if you do it, so it's light enough that I'm not sliding, I'm not drawing a picture of a circle on my hand. I'm literally pretending there's Velcro on my fingertips, and I'm taking that little piece of skin and pushing it all the way around in a circle, and then I'm going past where I started about a quarter. So if you don't have contacts, because this probably could be not a good thing for contacts, but if you just put your finger on your eyelid and you can move that skin around, that's really light. You don't need to have a lot of pressure. It's a very light work. If I do it on my cheek and I do it lightly enough that I move the skin in a circle and a quarter, but I don't feel the bone underneath, and yet I'm not sliding, that's about a 1 pressure. And if I press in a little bit and I feel the contour of the bone, that's about a 3 pressure. And that's pretty much TTouch right there in a nutshell. Every once in a while, we can do it a little bit more if it's a really thick coated dog, or if you're doing it because they're itchy, but mostly it's a very light work. It's surprisingly light. And we don't do it fast. You might start, if the dog is really panting and very active, you might do a couple of faster ones, but we really do 1, 2, and 3 second circles. You consciously slow down your hands to help bring down their emotional state. So, and remember to breathe. If I'm all tight and pokey, every time I've done this, I have my thumb there so that my fingers are free to kind of move and be flexible. I can do it with the tips of my fingers, the pads of my fingers. I can do it with my whole hand. I can do it with the side of my hand, whatever works for you, as long as you're doing circle and a quarters. So you do it all over the body, but our goal is to find the place first where they love it. And from there, that's where we're going to work out toward the places that they're a little less comfortable being touched. Remember your thumb connection, because if I'm holding my arm up stiff and pokey and doing it, they're not really receptive to that. It's kind of got to be loose and flowy. Okay. And remember to breathe. It makes a huge difference if you breathe. So there's the clock. Keep your hands soft, flexible, and relaxed. It's a light touch. While we're doing it, we're looking for relaxation in the body. Are they starting to blink rather than stare? Taking deeper breaths or yawning, making sure that they're not holding their breath. Those are all things to look for. Now, the ear has actually acupuncture points for the entire body. So when you're working on the ear, you're working every organ and every system. I wonder if I can, no, I'll do it at the end. Okay, so what you do is, I'm going to pretend this is an ear, and I can just do ear slides on it. Well, people too, you can do ear slides on them. But if you can see in this picture down here, this doggy here is, she's sliding her fingers on it. I will show you this with Luna, my dog, if I hurry up. And so earwork is very powerful. It can, since you're working, there's every acupuncture point, it works every organ and every system when you're doing it. So it works on people too. You can just slide your fingers out in kind of raise, and you just feel all the bumps. So if you have, and this is for all of them and us, stomach problems, cramps, headache, ate too much, all those kinds of things, doing ear work on yourself is really useful. But it also feels good. And most dogs, unless they've had chronic ear infections, and touching their ear means you're going to medicate them, they like their ears done. And it's because it's also releasing endorphins and oxytocin. So it's a pretty powerful tool, that and the face, which we'll get to. I'll show you some of what that looks like shortly. So the mouth is, as I said, it's one of the closest links to the emotions. Hence, people or animals, well, people, for us, if I'm worried, I'm working on my face, or if you're, surprised, you go to your mouth. I mean, babies put everything in their mouths. Dogs lick a lot. Grooming is soothing, unless they have an allergy, that's a different thing. But a lot of dogs will lick surfaces. it's self-soothing. So the mouth, for us, it's eating, smoking, all those things are really, you're releasing endorphins. And so with dogs, we can really use that. We can also get them, it's really good for bitey and barky dogs, puppies, teething. Mouthwork is a really, a really good way to help them get over being mouthy. It's really, really great. But it's also good for shifting from one place to another. If you just get them comfortable working with their mouth. And some of the things about this is coming from behind the head or on their, from their side, not straight onto their face. You put your one hand under. Oh, one thing I didn't say about when you're doing the TTouch is I have one hand on the dog for just for contact, and the other one I'm doing the TTouch with because I want the brain to pay attention to what I'm doing on the dog. So there's all kinds of work we can do with the jowls and slides, and then we do TTouches in the gum, and I'll do some on Luna shortly. And here's me doing a kind of stroking out. This is my dog, Ruby D, who's not with us anymore. But anyway, she doing some mouth work on her. I was just doing slides on her jowl. And then we do tail work. The tail is often one of the strongholds of where they don't want you to touch. So there are ways to kind of get to it that make it a little easier for them. But mostly what we want to do is find the place they love to touch, and then maybe just work on the place they don't like so much once and go back to where they like. Because we don't want to go, okay, you don't like your butt touch, so that's where I'm going to work. Because the more you do it, the more they're going to be going, no, 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 and it'll kind of build. So we want to just kind of disassemble their concern around the areas that they don't like to be touched. So I'll do a little tail work with Luna coming up, and then wraps. Body wraps, most everybody knows about thunder shirts, but you can do head wraps and face wraps, and they can make a big difference. They're certainly worth a try. There's a book called All Wrapped Up at the TTouch office that Linda's sister, Robin Hood, made, which is great. There's one for people, there's one for dogs and horses. There's one for horses. So they're really useful. Certainly if dogs are getting over an injury, but for just calming and containment, it can, on the dogs it works on, it's a wonderful thing, but it certainly is worth a try. So then the third part of TTouch is a confidence course. Moving through the confidence course helps the brain process and integrate information and promote balance. Here's a little example. This dog is, confidence course means we just put out a bunch of different things for them to walk over, around, and through very slowly. It is not like agility. It's all about helping them become more balanced and turning corners with, let's see. And so you look for how fluid the dog's movement is, whether they're balanced over their feet, their position when they stop, and then the head and tail carriage again. And their stride, is it even, are they balanced? It's a good way to assess if something's going on with your dog as how they're moving, about how their back line is. And so what we have here is a dog who is out of balance. If they're out of balance physically, they're out of a balance emotionally. So mentally and emotionally. So, you know, it's all of this work is designed to get them to be more present in their body and have better proprioception as well. Here's a labyrinth this dog is going through. You walk through and turn corners. It has boundaries, which is interesting, and it helps them think about where they are. It's a fascinating tool. It can make a big difference. And I have a quick video that I can show you here. Here's more of the labyrinth. We use double-ended leashes. They're more prevalent now in the world, but nobody was using them when we started them. But it does give the dog more information. I think it makes some dogs feel more secure or confident, because you can give them a better idea of what you're looking for. There's all kinds of elements of the confidence course, and if I play this little video, let's see if I can get that happening. And then the balance leash, I have a little video about that, which is handy too. They're both very short. Okay, balance leash video. Let's see if this will play. That would be great. Let's see, it looks like something's happening. Okay, this is a video done by Robin Hood, which is Linda's sister, who helped her develop this work. And Robin is an amazing teacher. And let's see, I'll move this along a little bit without me screwing anything up. There we go. Uh-oh, no. Oh, I know what's wrong. Hold on. She's talking. Okay. Oh, wait a minute.
Hey Pam, just a heads up that we don't have audio on the video. I think we could see everything. I don't know if that's okay, but you're muted. You've got yourself muted, Pam.
Thank you. Okay. Ooh, so, all right, hold on. I have to unmute this other one. No. Uh-oh. No. Shoot. I think I have to leave the meeting over here.
We may just not be able to hear the text. Do you want to maybe keep yourself unmuted and describe to us what's happening in the video?
Yeah, that's I don't have the right screen right now. Oh, here we go. Let's see. All right. No. Let's see. All right. That better? No. This has happened to me before, and I don't know how to fix it.
There you go. As long as one of them is muted, you should be okay.
Well,
oh, nope.
Yeah. This one's unmuted. Is that better?
Yes, that's great.
Good. Now, let's see. I think my PowerPoint is all right. All right. Well, we're there. Okay. So at any rate, you just drop the lead across the chest of the dog. And if you're walking along and you come across another dog, you can kind of get more control of them if you could just drop that in front of them. So you're stopping them from the chest than rather than the neck. So let's see. So here's a picture of it, because it's stopping the dog from the chest here, rather than pulling on the neck. And because when they start to pull, it chokes them. And so this is a lot of people use harnesses now, which is useful, but if you're not, this is a handy tool. Okay, forget the balance. Okay, and then I have another video, but now I'm afraid to even show it. So I will do a little demo with Luna. How about that? Let's see if Luna is up for that. Luna, what happened to the treats I put here? Huh. Sweetie, let's see here if I can get this. Let me stop sharing. Oh, I have to stop sharing. Okay. Okay, let's see. All right. Okay, can you see me?
Yeah, we can see you just fine.
Good. Can you see Luna? Let me sit down. A little
Yeah, we've got Luna.
Okay, come here, sweetheart. Yes, let me get, I have to give her the treats because she gets very excited with treats. Here, sweetheart. Come here. Come here. Yeah, let me turn around. All right. Now, here is Luna. Yes. So I wanted to show you the ear work. Well, let me start with this. If I just do a nice slide down her and see where she's sitting down, but just she wants to, it's not because she doesn't want me to touch her hind end, but she's trying to figure out what I want her to do. Hi, sweetheart. If you feel your dog, feel how the skin is loose or if it's tight. It's often looser on the neck unless they have a neck issue. Sweetie, you stand up. And oftentimes it's a little tighter by the hind end, certainly with dogs with a lot of who are anxious it is, or who are fearful. Yeah, you want to face me? That's not so good. That's not so good for the camera. No, turn around. Okay. Now, for some fine points, the ear work is just, I just kind of do a circle with my thumb and just slide out the ear. That's nice. And I find a pressure she likes. I can also stroke from the nose over the eye and out the ear. That's a good girl. Good girl. You can also take the whole ears and move them around. That's good. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put your butt back here. I'm gonna put your butt back there. That's good. And that's good. The chest is a really good place to do. Thank you. That's a good girl. And this around the neck and the shoulders is a really good place to work. I actually don't know if you guys know about the TTouch harness. It's one of the best harnesses. This was designed in England. It's not tight here behind the legs, and it's got front and top connections on it, which is very nice. Now the Mouthwork, let's see if I can stick my finger up there and work on her gums, or I can take her lip and just slide out the lip. It takes some, if you haven't done Mouthwork on your dog, sometimes if you just see if you can do a little bit on the face and maybe just stick your finger up there once and then come back to where they like. And that's the whole idea, is to find the place they like. And they just go, oh, I really think that's swell. And that's when you start to work on the places that they're not that comfortable with. And the mouth and the hind end, for the most part, seem to be areas where they have a difficult time. The other possibility I've found is, well, sometimes they're just not used to being touched in places, and that's a whole different thing than if they have a lot of concerns about it. So the hind end and the tail, can you see this tail? Now you can turn around. Can you stand for me? Let me see your tail. If you take it and you can do holding it by the base and do some circles and just do some circles. I'm using my thumb to do the circles, kind of resting it on my hand and doing some circles on the thumb, with my thumb on the, and you want to really be able to do these all over the body. Okay. And this is a nice thing to do when you're walking, just reaching down and doing these great big circles, or something called a zigzag, which is just down and up. They're big movements to get the dog, once you've been working with them, to kind of shift their focus from what they're concerned about in the world back into their body. Good girl. So when they yawn, or whether when they shake off like that, I always praise them, because those are ways that they can emotionally shift, help themselves emotionally shift. So those are things that are really to encourage them to do. And yawning is emotional shift too. I know some people say it's because they're concerned, but the fact that they're moving their mouth means that they are in fact engaging the, well, I should wait and see if there are any questions while I'm here. They're releasing their own endorphins, and I don't have any more treats, darling. I don't have any more treats. I know. Okay, are there any questions?
So we did have one question. Michelle asked, can the mouthwork be helpful for adult mouthy dogs? I have a 2-year-old golden doodle that I rescued a year ago, and he's a mouthy guy.
Yes. Yep. Mouth, you know, it takes a little finesse to get them comfortable with it, but it's interesting. At first, they're like, "What are you doing in my mouth?" They're like, "Ay, what are you doing?" But if you just, here, sweetie. Oof, oof, oof. If you just find the place they like, so like their ear or their chest or their neck, and then just come up and just do a couple of TTouches, and then go back to where they like, and then sneak up another one and go back to where they like. And then when you really have a mouthy dog, just get in there with a little bit of pressure. It's not tickly. There's actually some pressure involved, and you could just rub back and forth on those gums. It's really fascinating. At first, they're like, "Oh no, don't do that, don't do that." And after a little while, they'll just kind of stop and go, "Oh wait, that really feels good." It's kind of fascinating. And for a mouthy dog who's a hard kind of mouthy dog, doing it from the bottom is not as useful or as comfortable as if you come over the top. I can't, let's see. I don't know how to get there. Come over the top, because they can't catch you in there. They can't catch you in there. If you do it from the bottom, they'll mouth you. But if you do it from the top, they can't actually get you. And so for puppies or whatever, initially, pretty soon they like it. They'll just sort of relax into it, like, oh, actually, it seemed like that was a really weird thing, but it's really very comfortable. It makes them feel good. And once you are working, when you're working with the mouth, when you're working with the mouth, it takes a little while, but eventually they go, oh gosh, that really, I think they get a rush of endorphins when you're done. And so it takes a little while for them to connect that it makes them really feel good. So pretty soon it takes, I had one owner called me 6 months later and said, I never thought it would happen, but the dog came over all the time and plopped its face in her mouth and just I did squishy face. Come here, Luna. Come here. Come here, sweetheart. I don't know if we can do this. Let's see. Come here. Oh my goodness, you're big. Get your faces here. Yeah, okay. Wait. I just take their faces and I just sort of squish them. You might do this yourself anyway. I don't know. But at first you have to work up to it. But when you finish that, they're often, here you go. They'll shake off, and then they start to love it. It's like giving them like a big loving session or something, but it's also kind of flooding them with endorphins, which is the opposite of adrenaline. So that really helps calm them down. Does that answer your question?
I think that's actually the only question that we
Okay.
had today. Everybody got what they needed. I'm sure folks will, oh wait, no, there was one more question. Sorry.
Okay.
So we got a question from Holly. As a vet tech, how can I practice this at my hospital? Are there TTouch courses for vet professionals?
No, it's just the same. It's the same courses. To become a practitioner, it's well, now it's online. It's a completely different thing. In the past, it was six-day sessions of in-person trainings. Because if you're working with other people's animals like you would be, and if you've been around animals, you probably already know many of the things you don't do so that you stay out of trouble or are safe. But you can do ear work. You can just do TTouches on their chest is really lovely, and around their neck, and it'll help calm them down. And the next time they come in, there's actually some benefit from the last time. And you can show the owners just a couple of TTouches, just those circle and a quarters. And when I read Linda's book, I was like, Linda Tellington Jones, who developed this work, I'm like, okay, this really sounds great, but really? And then I went to see her because I was interested enough. And I was like, I don't understand why it works, frankly. There's been a bunch of scientific research that when you're doing the circle and a quarter, which is a non-habitual, I did not say actually that this work comes from Feldenkrais work, which does non-habitual body work and different functional integration exercises translated. But it affects both hemispheres of the brain, not only in who you're working on, but in you too. There's something going on. There's some kind of exchange on a different level, because I've been doing this a really long time, and it's infinitely fascinating to watch what happens with this work. So the key is to find where they love to be touched and then work toward the places that are more difficult for them.
Very cool.
And it's very light. It's very, very, people are surprised how light the work is. Because we're not working with the muscles, we're working with the skin and the nerve endings.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pam. We really appreciate it. Again,
Thank you,
if you
everybody.
are looking to talk to Pam or learn more about TTouch, what are some places they can go? How can they reach you?
I am woodsidetouch.com. And you can reach me through that. I'm woodsidetouch@mac.com. I have a Facebook page, which is Woodside TTouch, and the main office in the United States is TTouch.com, and there's information on there. There's training classes now, a bunch of classes, and they're online. So that's made it a lot easier for people than having to travel and stay somewhere. And you can, on TTouch.com, you may have some practitioners in your area. I don't know. There's your dog. And it's really interesting work. It kind of seems incredible, but it is. It's infinitely not boring, I have to say. Just do a few TTouches and see what happens. And if you have a dog with a big issue, try working for I always tell people 20 minutes a day, thinking they probably may do 10, and you could do it in a few minute increments when you get a minute. Watching TV, or when you wake up in the morning, if you cuddle your dog, it's a great time to get a little bit in there, and it's accumulative. So for whatever reason, it seems to mean that if you can put in a little bit of time with it, then when something starts going on and you reach down and you do a couple of TTouches, you can help them to, you know, get their act back together again, get more present so that they can hear what you're saying and do what you're asking, which is what doesn't happen if they're kind of over the top.
Awesome.
Anyway.
Thank you so much, Pam. We really appreciate it. Again,
Thank
for those
you.
of you that might have missed it in the beginning, we're a nonprofit. I will be sending out the recording link right after this, as soon as I can get it uploaded to YouTube. We have more webinars coming up soon, so always check what's going on at everydogaustin.org. If you want to get in touch with Pam, you can go to woodsidetouch.com, and we look forward to seeing you next time. All right, have a
Bye.
good one.
Thanks for
Thank
what
you so
you're
much,
doing.
Pam.
Bye.
Okay, bye.